In Unit 5, one of the things we want to know how to do is how to identify augmented 6 chords and also how to resolve them. So this is, first of all, an analytical thing. We want to be able to identify each of these chords. This first one is Italian, and if you remember, every one of these has all the ingredients of the Italian. If you move over to these other types, we're just going to add some ingredient. But all the basic ingredients are here. We have flat 6 in the bass, and up above in the other parts, we'll have sharp 4 and scale degree 1. Now, I haven't given a key, so when you're dealing with a chord like this, an augmented 6 chord, you can use your knowledge of what's in the bass to identify what key you're dealing with. Here, as soon as we discover that it is an augmented 6 chord, I've given that away by putting that up on the board that we're dealing with that. But if you were starting from scratch, you'd first have to realize that you've got a chord here that involves an augmented 6. Really, your first step, if you're like me, you'd probably want to stack that up. And so you wouldn't actually find an augmented 6 first. Let me show you why. You would stack it up by making a bunch of thirds. I'll put it over here. So we have our D sharp, an F, and an A. And your first cue that this is an augmented 6 is going to be this interval. Try and make this into a triad. D sharp, F natural, and A. It does not compute. You have no kind of triad that has a diminished third in there. That is the first bump in the road. That bump right there, a diminished third, should say, oh, we're dealing with an augmented 6. And notice how this becomes an augmented 6. A diminished third, when inverted, becomes an augmented 6. Just verify that. D sharp to F becomes F to D sharp. The diminished third is the augmented 6. So if you're a third stacking kind of person, you're going to see this when you restack the chord in thirds. You'll find the diminished third, and that says, oh, we're dealing with an augmented 6. So step 1 is to realize that you've got an augmented 6 chord in the first place. You may realize it directly by noticing the augmented 6, or you might be into third stacking and notice it right there at that stage. But that is number 1. This is an augmented 6 chord. Then your next question is, what kind is it? Well, with 3 elements, it has to be an Italian 6. What key is it in? Well, in an Italian 6, the bottom note is always the lowered scale degree 6. Now, let's assume that we're just in minor here, but it could be major or minor. So the main thing I'm trying to figure out is, what is the tonic? Well, if that's flat 6, then that must be the tonic. All I have to do is go up a major third from the bass note, and I'll get the tonic note. So up a third, a major third, gives me this A, and I know that I'm an A. Now I'm going to say A minor, but it could well be A major as well. We don't have enough context to tell what the mode might be. All we know is that the tonic, the keynote, is A. So this is an Italian 6 just because I have 3 notes. But if you want to be more particular about it, you can notice that we do have flat 6, scale degree 1, and sharp 4 in this key. All right, so first of all, we know that's an augmented 6, we know what kind it is, and we know what key we're in. That's all this business of being able to identify. We have to know what key we're in, we have to know what kind of augmented 6 we're dealing with. Let's also deal with resolution. The 2 tendency tones are the lowered 6, which needs to go down, and the sharp 4, which needs to go up. So I would find those 2 things and resolve them first. Flat 6 is always in the bass, so take it down a half step to E. And then find your sharp 4, which is going to be the augmented 6 above the flat 6. Resolve it. Okay, now augmented 6 go to dominance. And so the way we move these 2 notes will just be a matter of getting them to notes within this chord. We need E, G sharp, B, So let's bring in our G sharp here, and our B up here. Now, if I take one A downward, I need to take the other A upward to avoid parallel motion. And that also will complete the chord, but that's very easy. So in an Italian 6, the scale degree 1, the third above the bass, is double because it's the most stable entity. And one of them will go one way and the other will go the other direction. That's how to identify and resolve in Italian 6 chords.